Welcome to Tulsa Opera Live. Happy New Year, first of all, and thanks for joining us this evening for our fourth conversation. I'm very excited to introduce Pat Racette to you tonight. Pat established herself as a great interpreter of Puccini and Janáček early in her career, and she gained particular acclaim for her portrayals of not only the roles of Butterfly and Tosca, Yanufa, Katya Kabanova, but also she sang all three roles in Tridico, Salome, Minnie, and Fanciulla. The list goes on and on. Pat Racette appears regularly at the Met, at San Francisco Opera, the Royal Opera House, La Scala, Paris Opera, Teatro Lisieux, Teatro Real, the Bayerische Staatsoper, the Lyric Opera of Chicago, Dallas Opera, etc., everywhere. Patricia has been a dear friend since I began work on my very first opera, Emmeline, and we'll talk a little bit about our first meeting nearly 30 years ago before I started writing it a little later. But now, please welcome the great Patricia Racette and a surprise guest star, I think, Patricia Racette's wife, Beth Clayton.
Mm-hmm. Hi, everyone. Yes, indeed. And you might have noticed my frozen picture was not I. It was actually my lovely wife, Beth, but we're using her computer. In any case, hello, everyone. It's so great to be here. Hello, darling Tobias.
Hello. It's great to see you. And so we have lots to cover in a very short time. Before we get going, I want to ask you about your training. I've never really asked you about that in all these years. I know you sang jazz. You studied jazz first, right, at North Texas State. Can you? What?
Yeah, my intention was to study jazz. My high school choir director, may he rest in peace, he's a real jazzer. So even in high school, now that I look hindsight, I can see that any kind of musical training I was up for. But he was a real jazzer, and so he hooked me up with these retired guys, 65 and older. And so many a Saturday I would go over and I would jam with them, and they taught me so much and exposed so much repertoire to me. And so I decided, yeah, that's what I want to do. And I always sort of had my own participation in making music and playing my little guitar and singing songs and whatnot. So it was very informal. And so when I chose the university I went to, and what happened was they didn't have a jazz voice degree per se. They had a great jazz department. They're actually renowned for that, but they didn't have the degree. So I was obligated to choose a degree program, and I chose something, I think I chose music education, and then ended up vocal performance. But in that discovery, I discovered what else I had going on vocally, and it came quite naturally to me. I'm not going to lie, I cried for 3 days when my teacher said, "I think your bread and butter is going to be an opera." And but obviously, I've since 33 years later learned to love it quite a bit. But that's basically my training.
You do a diva on. Do you still do Diva on Detour?
Yeah, we've done that show probably more than 30 times now, in all sorts of places.
In San Antonio at the Tobin Center, you came down and did that. It was fantastic.
Did it a version of it at the Century Club? I did it in Madrid. I've done it in lots and lots of places, and it's great fun. And it's something, for me, is circling back. It's like coming home. If anything, opera.
Make a CD of your jazz numbers.
Diva on Detour, right? Naxos has that, and and I'm in the process of building another cabaret show. So it's something that I love, and it's like returning home for me. It was not something that I added on to my operatic presence. It was quite the other way around. The opera was more the interloper. And so to return to it and to be able to do it, simultaneously was just great, to do it at the same time as pursuing my operatic endeavors.
And then after Northwestern, you went straight into the San Francisco Opera Young Artist programs?
Yeah, after I left North Texas, I just finished my bachelor's degree, and 2 weeks later, I was in the Maryland program. I was very young, one of their youngest. I think I turned 21, and had my summer there, and then did 2 years following in the Adler Fellowship program. So that was a major part of my training. Just the exposure to not just the great talents of the day. I mean, my first cover assignment was Pilar Loengar. I mean, it with a cast of Marilyn Horne and Tom Stewart. It was Falstaff. I was covering Alice, and so to be sitting there, and I didn't know. I was so ignorant. I didn't know to be awestruck, but I was. I had to be informed, but I was, and it was kind of an incredible experience, and it was very much boots on the ground, hands-on training. But it was something that was pretty monumental in my professional and musical and artistic development.
And what was your professional debut after, or do you count Marilla and Adler?
Well, I mean, if we do count Marilla, my professional debut was Madama Butterfly, outdoors no less. But if we don't count that, if we talk about main stage, my main stage debut was Alice in Falstaff in the student performances. And that's really important. Slightly, when you were as green as I was, terrifying but important training to just be on that stage of the War Memorial Opera House with a full orchestra and all the trappings of what it is to be in that production. It was a great Ponell production. Excuse me. So
when you left what was your first role after you left San Francisco?
Oh. Yeah, you know what? I think my first professional role after San Francisco, and granted, I did other roles. I did Mimi there and everything. It was Nedda in Pagliacci at Miami Opera. Or was Florida Grand Opera is it still called that? I don't know. It was quite a while ago.
A few years, yeah. And then, so what are the places you did Butterfly?
Because I was, I remember this, excuse me, masterclass as an Adler, where Regine Crespin came in for a 2-week residency. And I got up and I said, I'd like to sing Que tua madre from Butterfly. And she flipped a lid. Who is the assassin asking her to sing Butterfly? Because I was, 22 years old. And long and short, she was totally okay with it after I sang it and realized I was doing it with my voice, with my abilities. But after that, I put the role away for quite a while. I think the next time I pulled it out professionally, after doing the Western Opera Theater tour, performing it more than 70 times, after that, I put it away. And I think the next one was at Houston Grand Opera, doing it in 2004. And that's when I sort of, on the professional stage, brought it back out.
Well, we have a clip of you doing Une Belle Dee from a Met HD broadcast. I think it's 2013 in the Anthony Minghella production.
I think it's an earlier year, but if it's from the year they made the DVD, but it doesn't matter. It's the Minghella production. It is the Met, and I assume it is I.
And it's you singing Butterfly, and I'd like to share that with our audience.
Great.
Sarà giunto, chi dirà, chi dirà, chiamerà butterfly dalla lontana, io senza dar risposta
Beautiful. It's hard to talk after that, but we're going to spare. We don't get to see you off yourself. That was such an amazing moment in that Minghella production too, and the marionettes.
Amazing.
Was that your favorite production, do you think?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I just I loved everything about it. I thought it had a filmic quality to it. It just had such nuance, and oh my Lord, the dance sequences that happened at the beginning of the opera, the dance sequence that happened at the beginning of Act 3. I remember begging Anthony. I said, please just forgive me. Let me just not be in character. It was one of our stage rehearsals. I said, just let me watch them, because I'm never going to get to be able to watch them. Just let me watch it. It's just so beautiful. And I just think it's absolutely magical and stage mastery at its highest.
You also worked with another late friend of mine, Luc Bondy. Did you work with him or on the very controversial production?
It was a very controversial production, and I know I'm in the minority. I loved that production. I loved it. I didn't quite see the criticism. I felt like a lot of the criticism was coming from those, which is no judgment on my part, that are traditionalists, and that, you know, we've got to push the edges a little bit, and to keep this art form alive and viable. I loved it, but he didn't come back, because Matila did the initial thing, and then I did the next time it came along, and it was remounted by his assistants.
I loved it too, and your jump at the end was how did that work?
But it wasn't me, right? It was you didn't? Then good Monsieur Bondy, because I was so, whenever I've done Tosca, I said, I love the daredevil part of it, and I wanted to do the jump. I've asked for things to be higher and to give me more room to fly in the air. But that was was it a real person?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was but it was someone that was in there that was dressed like me, and you know, my height, whatever, and
froze in midair, right?
Froze in midair, and the light cue most of the time worked where it would shut off right before the person stopped. But there were a couple performances where the light cue was just a millisecond late, so you saw which was
a very death-defying moment for the stage manager.
Yeah, it was. But it was. I mean, it's just.
Someone should write an essay about all the mishaps with Tosca jumps.
Indeed.
We have a little clip of Tosca from the Bondy production at the Met. Eric, could we see that?
Non so nulla.
Non vale quella prova. Aperti, ripigliamo. Aprite le porte che nota i lamenti! Più forte! Più forte! Allate! Su via!
spectacular. That's a tough act to follow. Now I realize I should have put our collaborations first and Puccini second. Now I know for next time. But
Oh, go on, Tobias.
well, you know, I did want to talk about your courageous historic cover story in Opera News when you came out in 2002. We have that. We have that. Just a shot of that. And I was thinking about this earlier. It was only. I mean, that was a big deal then, and it was only 13 years until the Marriage Equality Act happened. So you broke a lot of ground with that, and it was very brave of you to do.
Well, it was important. You know, I've never been anything, well, that's in my adult life, you know, out to my friends and to family and to people that I knew and everything, but it's a different thing when you're in a public profession to be out in print, to be out professionally. And it's not that I went to any sort of lengths to hide it, but when I was asked in frequent interviews or whatever, and, you know, the interviewer obviously knew, and I'd say, you know, I'd rather not comment on that. And I realized very quickly and early on, maybe not even early enough on, but I realized very quickly that you know, if a straight person is asked about their husband or wife, they don't sit there, well, I'd rather not discuss that. And so it was projecting a level of shame that I actually didn't feel. And in fact, was betraying the pride that I have and the importance that my being myself and my union with Beth. And I just thought that's the thing I celebrate most in life. So it just didn't make sense. And it also, I think for me, it would have artistic repercussions because I pride myself in feeling authentic and fully invested in the roles in which I portray. And it just didn't make sense to be phony in this aspect or withholding in this aspect and not, you know, and try and be a fully realized interpretive performer. So it was a decision that felt, Beth and I, we talked about it, if you recall, because you were also in the midst of your career, and we thought, are we going to do this? And we felt nervous, and I did have a few sleepless nights, like, oh God, what have I done? Oh, because I did have people close to me, not my team, but people close to me saying, I'm not sure that was a good idea, and so. But it was something that, I mean, I'm very proud of, and I stand by, and now shout from the rooftops if they'll let me.
Great, that's great. So let's go back in time a little bit to when we met, because I wrote 3 of my 6 operas for you, and the first one was Emmeline. And I hadn't met you, but you'd been cast. I was a baby opera composer, never having written one before. And so John Crosby at Santa Fe Opera said, well, Ms. Racette is going to come and see you and look at your sketches to decide whether she wants to sing the role, and you'll get acquainted with her and her voice and so on. You showed up one day, and that's the. Do you remember anything about that first meeting?
I'm trying to. Did we have a communication?
I don't want to put you on the spot because I have I can no. Oh, before that,
did we have communications before we actually met in person?
I don't think so. Maybe, you know, maybe we faxed each other, you know, when you were going to
back when you're dating us. Next thing you'll mention cassette tapes. Yeah.
Yes. Well, you actually walked in with a bunch of cassette tapes of your singing, and I hadn't really written anything yet. You were interested to see something of Emmeline. I said, well, you know, here's a theme, but I don't know yet what this all is going to sound like. And you said, well, this looks okay. You looked at it, and I said, and would you like to sing for me? And you said, it's 10:30 in the morning. Are you out of your mind?
I do remember that. I do remember that. What were you thinking, Tobias?
And you handed me this pile of cassettes, and you said, here, listen to these. And or go and get some CDs of Franey.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
I wrote the part for you with you in mind, very much in mind. After that, I listened to your cassettes, and then you got the score, and I remember you getting in touch with me. You probably sent me a fax and said we need to talk. And you remember that? What you do? How do you remember that? Well, I mean,
I don't know. How do I remember that? I remember we interacted about stuff, and I had some concerns about a few spots, and we addressed them, is what I recall.
That's a very nice story.
It is indeed.
Yeah, no, actually, you said if I actually have to jump from a low B to a high B flat, it's going to destroy the center of my voice, and I'm not going to do that. You need to rewrite this.
I remember there being an issue about an E flat that was held for half a page. A high E flat. That's what I remember.
No, E flat. Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever. You wrote a magnificent opera, and it's an opera that really allowed me to have my impact as a performer. And I think it was such a wonderful success, and I was honored to be in your first opera.
Well, it was, it was a great collaboration because you ended up singing the original version of what I wrote, and you made that role. But we did collaborate on. It began a long collaboration where I began to trust what you had, what you taught me a lot about writing for the voice. So we'll talk about that a little if there's time. But let's there's a scene. We're toward the end of. We have a clip of "Don't You Want to Save Your Soul, Sister Mosier?" Toward the end of the opera, when you're being sent, when they want you to leave town, because of what's the secret and revealed.
Don't you want to save your soul, Sister Mosier?
Save my soul. How will I save it? By running away? If I live, I will have to lie. If I tell the truth, I will be sent away again. How will that save my soul? I don't want your money, Pastor. I don't want your prayers. There is nothing I want. Everything I want is gone.
Why don't you leave, Sister Mosier? No one here will forgive you ever. Not a soul here will ever speak to you again. Why don't you leave?
I cannot. Waiting for my child. I am waiting for my child to come
was Emmeline. You were the first Emmeline.
That's just magnificent writing. I loved reliving that.
Well, you
But
made it
so
a
young.
success.
I was so young.
Do you have
Tobias.
any, Eric? Do you have any pictures of us at the here we were at Francesca's house at a party during rehearsal? Yeah, we were a little younger.
Oh my goodness.
At the after party,
Yeah.
after the premiere, opening night,
Right.
and some production shots. So then is there anything, do you remember working with me on American Tragedy? I wrote the role of Roberta Alden for you, and we worked very closely on that.
Yeah. 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 That was also a wonderful experience. Wonderful experience.
That was 10 years later almost, in 2005.
Yeah, that was 2005, and the other thing was 1996, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So what was it like creating that role at the Met of a brand new opera?
Well, in all fairness, it's like creating any new role, from a living composer. It's a privilege. It's kind of a really rich experience, because you don't have to wonder what the composer meant by that. I can just send you a fax and ask you, and things like that. It's just to have that sort of part of your process, as you have any singer will have their process of how they're going to learn a part and what steps are first and all that stuff. But to be able to actually have interaction with the person who created it is a luxury, and it's wonderful, because it's also it's as the performer, it's self-instructive, because you're able to realize and get answers and investigate things and get answers for those investigations, interpretively, whatever, musically, that maybe you wouldn't be able to with Puccini or Mozart or whatever. And it informs me as the artist, because then I know what I have to, the blanks that I have to fill in those other experiences. So I've always loved participating in world premieres. I just in having the first crack at a new piece.
Eric, do you have production shots from the Met American Tragedy show? I was going to play a bit of the trio that you sang with Susan Graham and Nathan Gunn, which that production shot is from. And Susan Graham is off stage. I remember working with you on very closely on the trio, and also one of your arias, and I did a lot of rewriting. There you are. That's really you drowning, right?
No, again, it's a double. They don't. I tried everything. I begged Francesca. I said, just put a harness under the thing. Let me do it. Let me do it.
But everybody thought it was you. Everyone thought.
Well, I mean, it was well cast and it worked, but it's just I still. Anyway,
the trio was interesting, because when I showed it to you, you pointed out to me that that Susan had more high notes than you did, and she's a Met.
Oh, did I?
We rewrote that a little bit, but she still had her high soaring B flat. I'd like to share that. Would you like to hear a little bit of that? You probably haven't heard it in 20 years.
I haven't. Yes, I would.
So you played the rest of that scene off stage with People Magazine's Sexiest Man Alive, Nathan Gunn.
I know, I actually remember because I was out and proud, but there was some chattering from some of the straight chorus women who said, oh, I was told, they said, oh, Nathan Gunn with her, what a waste. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, and I remember now that B flat. Damn you, Tobias. The hell were you thinking?
You had a B in there.
I know. You actually gave me a D in the role. So
That's right. When you're drowning, you had a D.
on the up on the boat. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was a memorable experience. That whole thing.
It was.
And a great production by Francesca Zambello, another great one by Cesca, and beautiful production designed by Adrian Lobel, with a car and all that.
Yeah.
It was really something. And then so we did one more opera together in San Francisco, Dolores Claiborne, and based on the Stephen King novel. And that was quite an experience for you, wasn't it? Because you had to learn that in 12 days, 3 weeks?
No, how long was it?
2.5, 3 weeks.
Maybe 2.5 weeks.
2.5 weeks, and you did it with the assistant director hiding in the bushes. But it was amazing, a great performance, and you made it another success for me, for which I will always be grateful.
And didn't Sandy McClatchy write the libretto for that? Wasn't it Sandy?
Sandy McClatchy wrote the librettos for Emmeline and Dolores Claiborne.
And Dolores Claiborne. And Gene Shear wrote the one for American Tragedy,
Gene
right?
Shear wrote American Tragedy.
Yeah.
So, there's Wayne Tigas strangling you in Dolores Claiborne. We have some production shots, but I want to move along. Let's see those.
Can I tell a little story?
Oh yeah, please do.
Yeah. So there's a moment where Dolores Claiborne comes in there, and there's a ceramic, I don't know what, it was a ceramic jar of some sort. And the instruction, James Robinson directed this production, this wonderful production. And I was supposed to crack it on his head. And it was designed to not be an issue, but I ended up giving, with no intention, but poor Wayne a concussion. So they had to reconfigure. I said, look, I'm going to really do this with four. Are you sure it's okay? And I checked with them. Are you sure it's okay? Boom. And then he had an egg on his head. So those things had to be adjusted, but
they kept
an intense experience.
Right?
Did I keep that from you?
Did it shatter on his head?
Maybe that's what it didn't shatter the way it was supposed to. And I was given full clearance to do the staging, but I wasn't going to do a fake thing. And I checked, but it ended up being, but he was a really good sport about it. But that was a challenging situation, because I think it was a bit intense for everyone involved.
I'm glad they didn't tell you the axe was okay to hit him over the head with.
Now that we've seen the photo.
Well, I think it was the next year you came to, when I was artistic director in San Antonio, you came to do your first Salome. And
yes.
That was quite memorable, especially your Dance of the Seven Veils, which created a kind of sensation in the city. We have photos of that, Eric. Some of that, I think. And that was your role debut with Salome, which you've done now since then at where?
Well, the role debut was in concert form at Ravinia, but my first staged thing was with you at the helm in San Antonio. I've done it since in Pittsburgh, in and Los Angeles and at the Met. Am I forgetting any place? Yeah, it was sort of, I had like a Salome year. I should note, you know, since we've just inaugurated a new president, that on election night, I had a performance of Salome in Pittsburgh. I remember, huh?
Previous election.
The previous election, yes.
Oh,
the
you
one
mean
in-
in 16?
Yes, in 16, I had a performance that night.
Uh-huh.
That's a cool photo. Why don't
That's
we have that on my
they're
website?
beautiful photos, yes. So
Yeah,
Salome, you're gonna still sing Salome, right?
I would sing Salome. Yeah, I would.
Yeah. That's good to know. So looking forward a bit, you decided to become a stage director too, and now you've directed your own production of La Traviata. I think at Opera Theater St. Louis we have photos of that as well. What was it? I mean, I could see how you would become a stage director because you're so involved, very involved in all the staging decisions and acting in roles that I created for you. But what was it? What was this? Was it a transition or just a kind of a natural outgrowth?
You know, when Jim Robinson approached me about the idea of doing this, it was years before this, several years, at least 2, if not more. And he said, "What would you think about doing that?" And I said, I would love to. It's something I'd always thought about. And you're accurate in saying, and perhaps much to the aggravation and dismay of some of the directors with which I've performed and everything. But basically, I have always had an eye for the entire situation. So in some ways, when you're singing a leading lady part, your business is, who am I? How do I relate to this situation and to the characters up there? But I always would be very interested in everything else. So it was a really natural, kind of seamless transition to be on the other side of the curtain. Nothing felt strange or unknown to me, nor did I feel out of place. I felt like a duck in water, frankly. So it was really exciting, and to be charged with telling the entire story, and instead of just from, it's a very mono-minded experience to be a performer, as is necessary, but to be in charge of telling the whole story, not just in terms of drawing out the performances from your principals, from your artists, but also visually tracking that story. And so I loved it. It's a lot of work, but I loved it.
Well, you'll have to come and direct something for us in Tulsa.
That would be fun. I would love that. And I was supposed to direct Susanna this past in 2020 at OTSL, but for obvious reasons that did not happen.
To have an Awakenings premiere of the same season. You may not have known.
I know, that's right. We were meant to have many dinners together.
But yeah, but it'll happen again, won't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it'll happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you became artistic director of their young artist program, the Jardine Young Artist Program.
Correct. Yeah.
I have a feeling you love doing that.
I have a real passion for fostering and curating I characterize them, my younger colleagues. I have a very strong opinion about how this art form should be realized, and I want to share that, and if possible, insist on that kind of path, the sort of total embrace for the artist to completely embrace the totality of what it is to be a performing artist, not just a sound machine, not just making sound, not just, to have the theatricality, the interpretive investment, and the virtuosic vocal necessities all collide. And that's what makes this art form so very special. And it also is what that makes the artist special. And so being someone that can help foster that and help them find their true inner artistic voice is something I feel really quite passionately about. And in fact, I've been keeping quite busy with it. in the off season, as it were, because we have now expanded our program into, we call it the GYA expansion, the Jardine Young Artist expansion. And basically what I have done is arranged for 7 other clinicians to be hired to, this is all virtual, of course, and it was always meant to be, but to work with the young artists that'll be returning in 2021, where they're getting coachings and voice lessons. And I've even arranged for someone to do small group movement classes. And we're going to have business discussions. We're having someone on board with that. So just basically helping them gather as much information about what it is to be in this profession, what it is to be an artist in this profession, and to give them time to incubate. And so it's not just some sort of blast for 12 weeks in the season proper. So that's something that's been keeping me really busy.
They're so lucky to have you, those kids, as a teacher and a mentor. But these streaming clinics that you do, I think you'll probably continue them after the pandemic, so before they come. It's a summer festival. People may not know that it's just in June, and the young artists are there for 6 weeks, but they'll be.
No, it's actually a May, June. It's the end of April. The rehearsals and stuff in May, but the performances are mostly in the June period. So it's closer to like a 12-week experience for them. But it's worth noting. It's worth noting, though, Tobias, that that Andrew Jorgensen, who's the general director of OTSL, and I were having these conversations about this expansion and doing it virtually before the pandemic. So it was never something that was going to be necessarily in person. So obviously we're forced to do it virtually, but it was always meant to be virtual in any case. So.
And it will be a regular part of the program.
And it will be, yeah, it is our intention to have it be a regular part of the program. But this is our first crack at it, so we'll see what the result is.
We may take it from your book for our young artists. It's a great idea. I'm going to thank you, Pat and Beth. I'm going to turn this back over to Danny Kyle to facilitate the Q&As. Danny?
So with that, who has a question for Tobias and Patricia? Any questions? Okay, Nicole.
So Patricia, how has it been not performing in front of live audiences due to the pandemic?
I think I can speak for every living performer right now. It has been rough because while I appreciate and I'm grateful for the possibilities of doing things, whether performing or teaching or whatever it is, virtually, there's just nothing like live performance. That's what's so magical about this art form. There's nothing like it. And seeing people in 3D and hearing the full contingency of their sound, not just from their sound to your ears, but take and fill the room. And I think we're going to be very, very hungry, and hopefully there won't be a ticket to be had anywhere in any theater after this rather trying time. So it's been challenging. It's been challenging.
Great. A question came to me in chat, and it was from Martin Wing. Might Patricia collaborate with Tobias in the future?
Tobias and I are always collaborating, aren't we, Tobias?
We are, even from afar.
Sure, why not?
Martin, do you mean in a new opera? Maybe so. It's a good idea. Well, let's talk later.
Sounds like a plan. I'll send you some cassette tapes.
Yes, send me some cassette. I do want you to come to Tulsa to do something.
I would love that. Didn't you just have Jim Robinson there doing something?
Jim Robinson just directed the Rigoletto, our baseball Rigoletto, which was the first time anybody heard an opera live with live singers since the pandemic began.
I'm sure that must have been gratifying.
And he'll be coming back. We will be, yes, Martin, we will be collaborating for probably the rest of our lives, I think.
Okay.
Come and visit me in the nursing home.
We'll virtually stream that out then.
Yeah.
A quick question from Suzanne. Did either one of you get a chance to meet Stephen King in preparation for Dolores Claiborne?
Not I.
No, Stephen King gave me permission and approved Sandy McClatchy's libretto, but he really isn't interested in opera at all. And so he didn't want to come. But for those who know the movie Dolores Claiborne, David Strathern, who played Joe, was very interested, and he came right here to my studio, and I played it for him before anyone else had even heard it. He came to the opening night of Dolores Claiborne in San Francisco.
Yeah, he did.
As did Ruth Bader Ginsburg, flew out for the opening and came to the party afterwards. We have some pictures of that. Maybe it's too late to show those. But so we had RBG there and a great actor. So we somehow muddled through without Mr. King. But we did try to get him to come. We didn't meet Steve. He was aware of it though, and I'm grateful that he gave us permission.
Two-part question. Tobias, you mentioned learning from Patricia while you were writing roles for her. Could you talk about how working with her shaped your writing? And then for Patricia, what did you learn from working with Tobias?
I working with Patricia made me a better composer for the voice, because any time you asked for a revision, it was for a reason. It was never for vanity. It was always because it made more vocal sense. So the letter aria in An American Tragedy, we reworked that together, and it just was better afterwards. And so everything I wrote after we worked together, every time we've worked together, has I think gotten to be more singable.
Yeah, well, what I remember is I think it was in one of them. I think it might have been Emmeline, but there's you wrote this generous crescendo on a note, and it was like, I think on a B or B flat, and I said, I can't. That's not that much more sound I can put there. So if you put it higher, I can give you that crescendo. But it was sort of that kind of conversations. But what I remember is, in working with Tobias, and just also referring to what I said, being able to work with a living composer, it's really being able to bring to life in the manner in which you, the composer, intended to have this, and to be able to work it and really have the opportunity to digest and ingest that process and have it be so dramatically, theatrically, and interpretively viable. That's something that, it was sort of, it was instructive in all my other endeavors, because it was something where you would explain to me exactly how but you could hear how you wanted the scene to unfold. And it was just, that was, it was a kind of a big, it's not milestone that I want to say. What's the word I want?
Learning curve.
It was an important learning curve in my rather young career, especially in '96, and that just persisted and continued.
Okay, we've got a chance to show you two quick photos from the Dolores Claiborne after the show and the after party. And then Julian has a question.
Yeah, I mean, there have been various kind of ways and creative ways of reaching audiences now through Zoom, through like distanced performances. But is there anything that you've learned, do you think, from this pandemic about reaching audiences? Do you think you can continue going forward?
About reaching audiences in terms of the actual capsulized moment that you're performing or having, or do you mean?
Well, I guess in outreach in general too. I mean, I've seen some like very creative ways of reaching new opera audiences. Do you think there's anything we can kind of glean from this moment that we can continue going forward?
Well, I think the virtual form is here to stay in some form or fashion. But referring back to what I said about live performance, I truly do believe nothing can take that place. But that being said, always exposing people to this art form, which I still think in the United States, it has an elitist sort of reputation. And hey, come on, I've been doing it for 33 years and I come from as blue collar as you can get. And so it's a very accessible, unique and opulent art form that is truly can be for everyone. So I think in making it available to as many people as possible, and certainly virtually, that can be done quite easily. I think that's been an important experience. I have to add my critique of what's going on. I have a young artist whose voice is just naturally just so resonant and just huge, and the saturation that the microphone, whatever situation, it can't handle it. We're built to fill a house, a 4,000 seat house. So I think if with the realization that this virtual form is going to continue, I would like to see more advancement in capturing the acoustic nature of what it is to make an operatic sound. Because I do sing cabaret, and that's not an acoustic situation. That very much the amplification is part of the oral experience of that. But opera, it's an acoustic art form. And so I would like to see somehow our technology to be able to accommodate that more. I'm not sure that answered your question entirely, but that's what I know so far.
But you're also, there's outreach in and of itself. You're sitting with us in our living room and we in yours. That's an extraordinary thing that's never happened before, to have access to the people who actually do it, to the people who are, for whatever brings you to it, your creativity, your whatever your calling is in your life. But there's an access and an education that's happening constantly now that never was really in the forefront, which I think is
that
remarkable.
will continue, I think.
Yeah.
What I've learned is there's no substitute for live performance, and I cannot wait until this is over and we can go back to the living theater, because this
Amen.
is a living art form, and even though we're virtually there and here and there, this is still two-dimensional. So
Okay, well, we have time for one more question from Reggie.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, I would like to know that if you would take the offer of playing Maria from West Side Story, would you consider it?
Me personally?
You personally?
I think I might be a little too, what's the word? Old.
No, you
For
are
that.
not. No, you are not.
I think
No,
the part,
that's not a fair answer.
let me just, well, I think the part might be better served with someone less experienced and perhaps,
Why don't you sing Anita instead?
I'll sing Anita. Bring that on. I'll sing Anita any day. That's a fun question, though.
well, you're very that's my Uncle Reggie, who's going to be 95, so you're a baby to him.
I see.
Well, I do consider West Side Story an opera.
Yeah, I mean, it's an extraordinary piece. Extraordinary.
Yes. Well, thank you for the answer.
You're welcome. I'm sorry it wasn't to your satisfaction, but I had to answer honestly.
I think
Well, okay.
we need to stop. We'd love to go on talking to you all, but I want to thank you, Patricia and Beth Clayton, for joining us tonight, and we'll be making this available on our website virtual, whatever you call it, in a few days. Thank you, and we'll be in touch soon.
Please, it's been a pleasure sharing this evening with you all, and Tobias, it's always such a pleasure to reconnect as ever.
I miss you very much, but this is this is nice.
And I miss you, and we miss you very much. So we look forward to being able to connect in person. And yes, let's chat soon.
We'll see you in Santa Fe.
Okay.
So,
All right.
please, everyone, thank you for coming and joining us. And please come back on March 5th when I'll be talking with my librettist for two of my operas, Jean Shear, whose American Anthem, which was made famous by Nora Jones and Denise Graves, was unexpectedly quoted by President Biden in his inaugural address yesterday.
Amazing.
Cool.
I know, we were watching and like, this was great. So there's a big article about Gene in the New York Times. So he had no idea he was going to do that, but
Wow.
but come back and join Jean Shear and me on March 5th and have a wonderful few weeks.
Great. Nice to be with you all. Good night.